You're listening to Underestimated, the podcast for small businesses who want to create outsized impact by using their size as a strategic advantage. Now here's your host, Shawna Suckow.
I have with me today a really cool guest that I think is going to help a lot of small businesses. His name is Josh Anderson, and he is the founder of Marketing Reboot, which is both his company, but he also has a podcast, which is how we met. Josh, I don't
Yeah,
remember who introduced us you found me on LinkedIn, I want
I
to
did.
say.
Yes. LinkedIn. And yeah, that's what I did about your book. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That was really cool being on your podcast, and we
Yeah.
had like this cool conversation, and I was like, okay, I got to have you on mine because you have some knowledge that I don't have. Your target market is more, I think you told me it was like 25 million to like 100 million is kind of your sweet spot.
Yeah. It can vary, of course, depending on the need and what they need. But yeah, I'd say at 25 million top line, this is kind of the sweet spot, around there, give or
Yeah.
take.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and mine is really kind of up to where yours begin. So like
Yeah.
at 25 million, they start needing you and not so
Right.
much me.
Yeah. That makes
So
sense. Yeah.
I'm super glad to have you on the podcast. But
Yeah.
first, I want to ask you, I need you to brag on yourself a little bit, but I'll make it more comfortable. So what is a really cool compliment that a client of yours has given you?
Oh man. There's always the testimonials that are great. But I think like the biggest compliment could be when somebody like allows you to be their fractional CMO, like, and then trusts you to do it correctly, right? So like that's the trust and that relationship building that while words can, like I've gotten that compliment, of course, like wow, you can visualize all the areas and how they come together for a full campaign, which is great and everything. But like just people giving you the trust to, to steer their baby, so to speak, is a big compliment.
Yeah, and so as a fractional CMO, I think it's really cool because you get to see a lot of different operations,
Yeah.
some good, some bad, some
Yep.
yee. So let's dive into that. So you are
Yeah.
here today because we wanted to talk about marketing operations. And you mentioned to me before I hit record that some businesses kind of start things out of order with their marketing operations. So talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, the what I do is really help people take chaotic marketing and see clearly, bring clarity to that, right? As you're very small business, kind of like the ones that's your ideal customer, right? You're just putting everything together and doing what you can to stay on top of being in the market and all the noise that comes with it. But as you start to build a little team, now you're not the solo founder anymore. You actually have maybe strategic marketer, director of marketing plus a junior marketer, right? Now you have three cooks in the kitchen, so to speak. Things can get a lot more confusing, of course, like who's working on what's being done, who's tracking things of that nature. So my team can come in and help audit the entire viewpoint of what people are currently doing. And then really we normally cut 25 to 30% of what people are doing because they're focusing on the wrong things or they're putting themselves in too many verticals where they're not even making so like the bandwidth the limit the juice isn't worth the squeeze, so to speak, for being on all these. So we come in, look at what they're currently doing, and then help instill marketing automation so they can grow their team from 2 to 4 to 5 marketing operations, I should say. So that is like something as simple as filing naming structure within Google Drive. Teams spend hours and hours and hours searching for things they've already created previously because nobody remembers what the name was, right? So
Yeah.
something as simple as that can save your team, each member, 1 hour a week, and that compounds over time. So
And so getting everybody on the same page.
yeah,
So,
exactly right.
what is the biggest mistake that you mentioned, like too many verticals? What's like
Yeah.
the biggest mistake that you see small business owners who are ready to kind of transition up to larger teams? What is the biggest mistake you see them making?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a few, and I know you said the biggest, but one of them is simply trying to be everything to everyone. You just cannot do it. We need to fix. We're going to focus on what we're going to try to own and be really good at, right? That doesn't mean you can't experiment in other areas. You can, but as soon as you can double down on what's working, then try to side experiments about, and then to see if TikTok is the right platform for you. That's probably a bad example, but you know what I mean. You can take more strategic bets on what's what you think will be the next thing. So yeah, being everything to everybody probably is one of the big ones I see.
Oh my gosh, I just did an episode on what platforms are right for you because
Hmm.
small business owners, especially when they're starting out, they're like, well, a dollar's a dollar wherever it comes from, and I have to be everywhere to get
Yeah.
customers right away because I'm small and I need the revenue.
Yep.
When really the opposite is true. And if you niche right away,
Right.
your exact right customers are going to find you so much more easily because your marketing
Mhm.
is targeted.
Yes, exactly right. And you become like and each platform has its intricacies, right? They're all different. Each platform, like use hashtags or no hashtags, just small things like that, right? You become an expert within, say, LinkedIn, that platform, of course. But then I think it's also very important that even from the start, you're really focusing on your positioning and your messaging, right? Of course, and that being everything to everybody goes not just from platforms and where you distribute your message, but also how you speak of yourself. You cannot be everything to everybody and expect to make a dent in the market, right? So I think it's really focusing on that subset of who you can truly really help and who you're passionate about helping too, because without passion, it's not going to stay. It doesn't have staying power. So I think that's important too.
So I'm just going to pull an example out of
Yeah.
the air to just kind of see how your brain works and your process works. So let's talk about, because dog lover, obviously, that side, that side.
There you go.
Let's talk about a veterinarian.
Okay.
So a veterinarian has been like working at another veterinarian's practice for a while, and they're like, I'm ready to start my own. So they
Yeah.
go and they start their own. And the first thing that I see them do, as you already mentioned, is I'm going to call myself, let's see, Minneapolis veterinarian. Um, let's just go with that because it's
Okay.
so cool,
Perfect. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, I have to attract all of my
Mhm.
potential customers. So I'm going to throw all of these typical words that veterinarians use on my marketing. So I'm going to say
Yeah.
what like they would say compassionate,
Yeah.
dogs, cats, and small breeds. They would list their hours. They would say friendly staff,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
boring stuff to just
Yeah.
cast the widest net possible.
Right.
But what they're doing is, I mean, you could slap any veterinarian's name on
Right.
that and
And it
you
would
wouldn't
look,
know the difference.
yeah, exactly.
So they call you and they're like, Josh, we need help. So where do you start?
Yeah. So great question. And honestly, I would start not even thinking about the messaging. It's time to kind of dive into where they're currently at. So if they're at another veterinarian, they have a lot of insight about what that veterinary clinic did well and what they didn't do well. They see the gaps that veterinary clinic has too. Maybe they weren't really good at cats, for instance. And now this new veterinary, Minneapolis veterinary, the actual veterinarian, I feel like I'm saying that word repeatedly, but she loves working with cats. So the passion's there and there's a market gap there as well. So I would also, so that's where I'd start just to get the core fundamentals of how we're going to develop this messaging. And then you're going to shape that around the felines. So, and well, not excluding all canines and all the other small animals, right? But
Why
like
not?
that, yeah, yeah, you guess you could do that, but that exactly. We would kind of curtail all that messaging to that audience and that age group. And then as you're like starting, this is down the road, but then you look at platforms too as well. I'm sure there's tons of demographic data about there on, if we're trying to use our marketing dollars as effectively as possible, which your demographic is on Facebook versus TikTok. I'm guessing just say Facebook, for example. So that's where we're going to target our audience, right? Just because we know that's where they're at. Um, so yeah, so now we have a gap in the market, say it's felines around that 50-mile radius area where you're trying to get clients from, or however big that's going to be. And then to your point there, lean completely into that. Like I am the number one cat recommended veterinarian in Minneapolis. Just then get creative. Might not be the best example in the world, but that's how I would think about it first, because I want to make sure I have that differentiator there, which would be almost exclusively focused on cats versus a generalist over here. So you can lean into being that cat expert.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that. I love when a small business picks their lane and commits to it because
Yeah.
then all their marketing gets easier.
Right.
You can have fun with the fact that maybe you can have fun with the name of your business if you're just cats because, cats rule and dogs drool or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
have fun with it. You can be very specific because cat owners are a different breed, haha, pun intended, from dog
Yeah.
owners.
Yeah.
And that veterinarian, if they love cats, why not go all in? Because
Exactly.
their
Yeah.
marketing also gets cheaper
It
because
does.
if they're doing like targeted ads or,
Yes.
whatnot, or they're working
Yeah.
with you, you don't have to come up with, okay, this is the message we'll start with. And then they
Yeah.
say, oh, but we really want to serve parakeets or
Yeah.
dogs too. It's kind of like you have to talk them down and say, it's going to be okay. If
Yeah.
you are a specialist, like the adage, if you're a neurosurgeon, you're going to get paid a lot more than a
Mhm.
general practitioner. So be
Yeah.
reasonable.
And that's so scary for somebody just starting that new business, right? Because they want every single dollar they can get, whether it's from that parakeet, the dog, whatever it is. They need that money, or they think, well, they do need that money, but it might hurt at the very beginning. But I feel like in the long run, being that specialist is going to pay off remarkably. And
Yeah, because word spreads.
yeah, yep, exactly
Word
right.
absolutely spreads.
Yeah,
I love working with auto mechanics who are small business owners and they're mechanics. It's a similar problem. They're like, okay, we fix all makes and all models.
hmm,
We can do it all. You don't trust them as much if you have, let's say you have a foreign car
yeah,
and it's a hybrid. Wouldn't you rather go to somebody who only does that? And would you
yeah,
drive past other generalists to get to them?
yeah. Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah, because that just builds credibility and trust and things of that nature, right? I also think too, like now when we went, that category went just only feline, but there's also other differentiators that said veterinarian could look at. Maybe, and obviously I don't know much about the field, but maybe they offer free overnight kennelling. With everything they do, they have free
Yeah,
overnight kennelling. And then
yeah.
that could be a big thing that they would push as well. If they want to stay in the generalist area, like they wanted to work on cats, dogs, and everything, but there's also other ways you can still differentiate yourself, excuse me. And that could be what I just mentioned, or it could be some form of customer service, because a lot of people can differentiate with customer service, like we'll respond to you within 30 minutes or something, right? But you got to find what that small differentiator is that's going to actually matter to your little market or whatever market you're in, and then just lean into that, whether
Yeah.
it's a cat or overnight killing, things like that. So
You can also specialize by what you treat. There,
yeah.
there is an emergency vet clinic that is only open at night after
Yeah,
hours,
yeah.
and they charge a premium because inevitably my dog would have an
Yeah,
emergency at
yeah,
like 9 o'clock at night
yeah,
and eat something dumb or and we'd have to
totally.
we had well, A, there weren't a lot of options at that hour, but B, um, we drove extra far
Yeah,
to get to that
yeah,
clinic because we actually got to trust them because we were
yeah.
so frequently there. We should have had our own parking spot. But like, I don't know much about cats. Not a huge fan. Sorry, listeners. Um, but dogs, for example, a lot of dogs get like dysplasia in their hips.
Yeah, one of our dogs had that. Yeah.
Yeah, same. Cats, I think that like feline leukemia, I think
Hmm.
is something that's big.
Yeah, one of our cats had that too. Look at this.
Oh my gosh, why not be a
Yeah,
specialist and list that because that's far more searchable. I mean, veterinarian near me is yeah,
yeah.
it's searchable, but how are you going to
You're
spell
not gonna
that?
own that keyword, right? Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think
why not have veterinarian near me
yeah,
that happens to specialize in cats and you're going to perk up a little bit more
yeah,
because you love your cat for
yeah,
some reason you love your cat.
yeah. And
Whatever.
I
But
love that thing too. But I love that thing about emergency vet too, right? Because people are not, and that's where your marketing dollars can go really far because people don't have to think about you at all times, but you just need to come to top of mind when they do officially need you, right? They
Yeah.
might stay with their normal vet from 9 to 5, but like you said, 10 o'clock at night, whenever something bad's going down, they're going to think of emergency vet, right? And I think that's a really smart play too.
So if you are a generalist, you are competing with every other generalist, big
Yeah.
and small. And the bigger they are, the more money, the more staff, the more everything resources they have. How are you going to compete with that
Hmm.
the smaller you are, or especially if you're just starting out?
Yeah.
So, again, this makes everything cheaper and easier because you know
Hmm.
your lane.
Yeah, your positioning is so vitally important when that's the case, right? You got to hammer out that differentiator that you can credibly stand behind and you personally believe as well, but then that those massive organizations can't mimic because the bigger companies are, the slower they are to react. That there's hurdles that come with that too. So you can be quick and agile in the market.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we don't have to keep talking about veterinarians, but let's go back to something that you said at the beginning. Like when you go in, it can be as something as simple as their Google file naming
Yeah,
conventions.
yeah,
So tell me now, okay, so you're starting out with the simple things. Let's get a little bit more into what do you do? What can you
yeah.
do when you first come in to help somebody as a fractional CMO?
Hmm. Yeah, so we just have, like most agencies, but ours is a little different. We have a foundational audit where we're gathering as much information as possible about a company. So we're talking about, of course, data and reporting, Google Analytics, HubSpot Access, things of that nature. But we're also like interviewing key stakeholders. If there's a board, we're interviewing the board, we're interviewing the C-suite, we're interviewing employees, and we usually do an anonymous employee survey to the entire company to see how they actually feel about how the company portrays itself. They're on the front line. They're going to get better. They're going to have really good ideas, right?
Yeah.
Then we also interview customers, of course. So we're gathering all this information, and we are first of all testing. We're looking at bloated waste, bloated ad spend, things of that nature. But then we're really focusing on what you guys think you're saying to the market is what you actually are. So we're looking at their actual internal positioning statement, excuse me. That can take a long time, and that there can be some really hard arguments about that in terms of what you guys truly are going to stand on as your differentiator versus, all the other things. So we're trying to hammer that out. We're trying to get a good messaging platform built. So that's your internal positioning statement, your origin story, your archetypes, ICPs, all this and data points to back those up and service offerings all in one document. This document is like gold because now you have a team of, you go from a solo founder, but you have a team of 4 to 5 to 6 plus sales, plus this, plus that, plus customer service. Everybody's messaging is going to be filtered through this messaging platform. So you're all speaking the same exact already agreed upon language. And you're portraying yourself the same. So it eases the customer journey because they hear something on the website, but then they talk to sales that's completely different. There's just friction there. So that removes the friction. Man, you're getting me excited about this. So we get this messaging platform built out, and that's going to be the holy document for what everybody's going to speak, how they speak internally and internally. Yeah, so we're organizing that into a good marketing operation system where they filter everything through. So that's really step one because we want everybody to speak the same language. So.
Okay, go on. Let's talk about step two.
Yeah, step two then. Okay, so now we have our marketing platform set, my messaging platform set. Step two is kind of then, and this happens at the same time, but the same aspect while that's going on is like a clarity path. So the EOS system, internal operating system, I was a follower for that forever and still that in several companies, but I believe in a lot of that. So we're talking to the entire organization, mostly leadership team at this now. What is your 3-year goal, your 1-year goal, quarterly goals? So now we're working backwards, right? And you can even go higher than that. I usually stop at 3 because once you tell people dream of 5 and 10-year goals, that's great and everything, but I like to be more realistic about what's here in front of us. So we work backwards, 3-year goal, 1-year goal, and then quarterly goals, but then also what issues do you see in the horizon? And then we assign ownership and timelines for each of those quarterly goals. That is going to be our roadmap for the next 90 days. From there, simple campaigns will be, well, not simple, but campaigns will be built out depending on what's going on, a weekly or monthly cadence to filter up to that quarterly goal, right? Okay, so
Yeah.
now we have the team talking the same language and we have the team aligned in the same path, so the same way, right? So we have our goals and we have our messaging. Now this is where we can then, so maybe we have to update messaging across the website or something, or across ads due to a different messaging platform, right? So we'll get that updated, and then we're going to test this. We already are testing this with our current customers to make sure they agree. Like, this, does this fit us? We're doing this internally to make sure the positioning is solid. And then I like to orchestrate some strategic A/B testing on the messaging platform. So getting this message out in front of your ICPs on whatever platform they're on. So Facebook or LinkedIn, for example, just because targeting is so effective there. Putting that messaging out there, and then analyzing it based on engagement and comments and maybe leads, of course, right? It depends on what the company is going for. So now we're verifying that messaging platform resonates actually with your customers. Yeah, so that's really the main three. We're getting our messaging platform down, we're getting our goals, everybody aligned in the same strategic path, and then we're going to start doubling down on what's worked, but through that, by doing that through really strategic small experiments. So that
That's
was a lot.
cool. Okay, you've said ICP a couple times.
Yeah.
Just define that for
Oh
our
yeah.
audience
Sorry.
who are
I
maybe just
did.
starting out.
Yeah. Ideal customer profiles. So this is essentially, in the ideal world, say you're that veterinary and you're going for felines. We're going back to that, I guess. It's Susie, who's 35 and has 3 house cats, and she's, maybe she makes 40,000 a year. I don't know. But like, you're going to get really granular on who that exact person is, how they feel, what problems they're having, how they would speak, how they, just getting very granular. And you can name them, of course, too, because that way you can then build campaigns specifically for Susie, because she might
Yeah.
be the ideal customer profile, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And you said simple messaging, but then you kind of corrected yourself and said, well, it's not simple, but I think what you do is it's simplified. Like the
That's
whole
yeah,
process is simplified.
yeah, yeah. It's
Once
simple.
you come in, it is.
I hope so. That's the goal, right? Yeah, we simplify that information gathering from everybody in the organization, outside the organization, and then it comes into a simplified framework, which is that messaging platform.
Yeah.
So that's a great
So
great point there.
it's easy. Everybody's on the same page. And so
Yeah,
the process is simplified. And then they don't have to look at each other every month or every quarter and just go, well, what should we try next? They know.
exactly.
They
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Because once you set your 3-1 quarterly goals, right? Now, say it's February 1st, whatever. So I guess it depends on how you want to structure your marketing cadences. But now you have 90 days of a goals and timelines that you need to hit, and you just break that into smaller bits with smaller campaigns, to reach those 90-day goals. So more bite-sized pieces.
And I wanted to touch on, so you said you will go on their platforms and do some A/B testing.
Hmm.
What do you feel is an appropriate amount of time to gather enough data to be sure that what you're
Yeah.
testing is really working,
So,
that data is
yeah.
valid, I
Yeah.
guess?
Statistically viable. Um,
Yes.
Well, I mean, there's so many things going to that. It's really how much budget they want to put toward it. The more budget you put towards it up front, the faster it's going to go, just because you get way more engagement, maybe not engagement, but more impressions off of the get-go, right? And then, so usually we recommend, and this depends, so many variables. Depends on the target audience too, because some are way more expensive to target too, because they're much more niche and granular. But if it's like a wider open audience, maybe you're testing $100 per day for 7 to 14 days. That's
Yeah,
just a
so it
general
doesn't
rule
have
of
to
thumb. That's just a
break
general
the
thumb.
bank.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then you just need to look at the data, right? Because if you, especially, how a lot of platforms, the algorithm will push A/B test one versus A/B test, or ABA, I guess you should say, versus AB2, because it's performing better. But you want to kind of have the same amount of data after a while for each one to get a good picture, right? You don't want your first test to have 1,000 impressions while the second one has 20 impressions, right? That's not going to be statistically viable to compare the two. So, statistically significant, I should say. So make
Yeah.
sure there is enough data points there. And a lot of that goes into knowing your market as well, right? So like, if you historically, you've been running ads, and I mean, people haven't historically, but if you've historically running ads for, I don't know, years, you know what the data has looked like from past performance, right? You put up a post, you average 10 likes, right? And you can kind of compare that previous data to these new tests you're. So a lot of variables go into that.
Yeah. And if you've been scattered with your marketing before, that data is not as significant, I guess,
Yeah. Yeah.
as when you're
Yeah.
really targeting,
Yeah.
which leads me to, okay, so uh, if I say I'm a small business, I'm working with you, and you are highly recommending that based on my ICP that I go all in on a platform that I haven't really had a lot of experience with. How long would you tell me to just trust the process? How many weeks, months
Whew.
before I really see traction when
Yeah.
I'm doing it the right way, following your simplified process?
Yeah. So at first, I would need, once again, there's so much that goes into that. At first, I would need to see what they're currently doing. So say they have had success on Facebook, and but I think from market research that their ICPs really are on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, that's what I
There's
thought.
no way I would ever have them just completely stop the current Facebook's going on, because I want that revenue engine still running in the background, right where they are currently. And then we would lay out a 90-day plan with strategic tests throughout. So we're essentially we've never posted on LinkedIn. I'm making this all up, of course, but let's now post twice a week with a brand awareness, small spin ad in the background. Obviously, we're going to UTM. We're going to track that properly, data tracking like that, so we can look at the analytics behind there to see how much traffic came from that source. Look at a cost per click, at how much that actually costs, and see if we got any form submissions or whatever your goal conversion is. Right. So it would be very small strategic tests to begin with, and we'd commit to it for 90 days probably, unless the data, within the first month, you can see like we've gotten 0 clicks, 0 form submissions. Then either our messaging must be completely off or our ICP is not right. So we're gonna adjust accordingly. So
Yeah. So what's I know there are a lot of variables to this, but what is like the average length of time
yeah.
that a business engages with you to get it right?
Yeah, so we do, I like very quick engagements, honestly, like 90 to 60 days. So 3 to 6 months. Some people just come to us just for that fundamental audit. Like it's a 30-day quick engagement where it's intensive for everybody involved, but we're gathering as much information as possible. Then we'll supply that to you. Yeah, so that's usually a 30-day. Ideally, I'm a 6 month kind of guy because I kind of get bored. I like to keep moving on and implementing things of that nature. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
And honestly, by that 30 days, the system is going to be implemented. People might want us for another 30 days or another 3 months just to watch to make sure.
yeah,
So yeah.
fabulous. And uh so what kind of advice, as we're kind of winding down this episode, what advice would you give for businesses that can't afford you yet? What are some practical steps that they can take to kind of shore up their marketing operations so that when they
Yeah.
can afford you, they haven't made a lot of those early mistakes?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just stay on top of first of all, stay on top of your data. Make sure, and I'm sure you are as a business because you're monitoring revenue, ad spend, things like that. And hopefully and monitor your attribution where your leads are coming from. Now, if you're not that sophisticated yet, which is fine, right? Um, I would say you still have a pretty good idea if your current ads are working, but still make a focused effort to get Google Analytics in place, Google Tag Manager, HubSpot, whatever CRM you're using, and make sure that's in place just so you're making decisions based on data, not gut feeling. Gut feeling is great for creativity. It can really help with some awesome campaigns. But if they don't deliver top line, what's the point? So, yeah, make sure you have the data in place. And then I would say, if you haven't done it in a while, or you might not even have one, try to build your own internal positioning statement. There's tons of great resources online. I have several blogs on the site on Marketing Reboot as well. But try to get the whole team aligned using the same language. And I'm talking from top of funnel to bottom funnel, plus customer service and onboarding and offboarding, even employee hiring and training. Like that can really be funneled through that messaging platform. So get the data, trust the data, optimize by the data, and then make sure you're speaking the same language. So.
And okay, so where can people find out more about you, what you write about, your podcast, all those things?
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, Marketing Reboot, it's MKTG abbreviation for marketing. So yeah, marketingreboot.com. Articles on there. You can subscribe to the newsletter. It's a weekly newsletter, which kind of it goes into these thinking and deeper thinking about these issues. And then the podcast is called Making Big Shifts. It's you can find it on marketingreboot.com, or you can go to youtube.com/@MKTG Reboot. and you'll find it there.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for your insights. I think
Yeah.
they're extremely valuable, whether you are just starting out and you want to get things right the first time, or whether you are a more
Yeah.
established business who is ready to expand or shore up what they've been doing. So thanks for being on here today. I think you're helping a lot of people, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you having me on. This has been fun. I really do appreciate it.
I do have one final question, and it is perhaps the most important question. Dogs or cats?
Oh, man. Ooh, growing up, dogs and cats. I'm both. I really am truly both. We only have cats now just because my wife's a huge cat person, but me and my son are talking her into getting a dog here, I think, this summer. So
Very cool. Very
yeah.
cool. Okay, well, we'll let it slide that you're both. Okay. Since you and your son, are
Yeah.
the dog
We're
people.
pro dog. Yeah. Yeah,
We'll
for
let it
sure.
slide.
Okay.
Thanks again, Josh. I really appreciate your time
For
and your
sure.
wisdom.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Underestimated, hosted by Shawna Suckow.